This is the third video in my series of Sammy Smith analyses videos. I gave it the title referencing abduction because this is where Sammy really starts to push for that particular narrative. These were both shorter interviews, so there isn't a lot to sink your teeth into. I may consider taking a closer look at the Tony Dodge interview down the track, but I'd like to know if you think that that's already been well and truly done to death by people, or if you would like to hear my assessment of the Tony Dodge interview. Anyway, here is analysis number 3.
We were both at the party together. We were going around together. We were like a little pair. Everybody kind of saw us together. We would split off for moments.
So first of all, are you going to tell me that two super confident teenagers were at a party and they spent the whole night just hanging around together, the two of them, and not circulating amongst groups of friends? That's my first question. Because we know that Sammy was, well, she loves to be the life of the party. And Kiely was certainly a very confident young lady. Why would she want to hang out with Sammy when, from what we hear, she didn't even like Sammy? Let's not forget the fact that, by most accounts, Sammy was the person who organised the party. So that to me says that there would have been a heck of a lot of Sammy's friends there at the party. I think we can be confident that Sammy's real best friend was at the party. So why were they hanging around, her and Kiely, like a little pair? Where were all Sammy's friends? It doesn't ring true to me at all. Which I think we all already knew that. But when you look at it logically, you're talking about a girl who loves to party, loves to be the centre of attention. She's not going to get around at a party for 2.5 hours, if we are to go with the narrative that Kiely arrived at 10. She's not going to spend 2.5 hours just hanging around with one single person at the party. Of course, she seems to have covered for the fact that there'll be people that'll come forward and say that they didn't see the pair of them together by saying that we did split off from each other for mere moments. So that if anyone does say that they didn't see Kiely with Sammy, then her answer can be, well, I was with her pretty much the whole night, aside from just a few mere moments when we split off from each other. I'm wondering if anyone ever believed that part of the narrative.
I have the last call to her, and I was the last person pretty much who knows what was happening.
Smith got a ride home from the party at the end of the night. She says Rodney was planning to spend the night at the campground.
Okay, so her language there was actually somewhat inorganic. I had the last call to her. That contradicts the other things she'd said, for starters, because she talks about having seen a call from Kiely, having had a call from Kiely, and now she had the last call to her. That to me, like I said, it's a weird way of saying it for starters, but at the same time, it's contradicting what she said before, because it is saying that she's the one who phoned Kiely. I had the last call to her, not from her. So I had the last call to Kiely. Which is it, Sammy? You've kind of screwed up the narrative well and truly with that last phone call. Well, for starters, you got the time wrong because the phone was already off by 12:36. But did you have the last call to her? Did you miss a call from her? Or did you have a call from her? Because we've had all those different narratives from Sammy across several different interviews. And of course, a red flag from the very beginning for everyone. I was the last person pretty much who knows what was happening. What exactly does that mean? I find it hard to actually even derive sufficient meaning from that. I was the last person that knows what was happening. The only meaning I can take from that is that you were the last person to see Kiely alive. So why are you running the investigation? Why are you allowed to be interviewing teens? And why are you doing all these interviews with media? To me, that was one of the biggest red flags. And I mean, we all know, I think just about every content creator that was out there that was covering the case said the same thing. I think this was one of the reasons that people started really paying close attention to Sammy. What exactly was she trying to say in that statement? So, this interview was done before the Tony Dodge interview. So I find it interesting that in this interview, she's told them that she believed that Kiely was planning on spending the night at the campground. And she's saying that she got a lift home at the end of the party. So it's none of this later narrative that we hear about her planning on getting a ride with Kiely and then deciding not to because Kiely was too drunk. Or talking about sitting in the car with Kiely and Kiely messaging her mum to tell her that she was going to be late home. So I'm wondering if at this point in time, Sammy was unaware that Kiely had messaged her mother to tell her that she would be leaving a little bit late. And that's why she said that she believed Kiely was going to stay the night at the campground. Because otherwise, why would you say that if you actually knew that Kiely had messaged her mum to say, I'm going to be late home? That also makes me think that that initial message, I'm going to be late home, possibly did come from Kiely. And that perhaps the question should be, why was there never the usual follow-up message from Kiely saying, I'm leaving right now? Because early on in the piece, Lindsay told us that that's what Kiely would normally do. She would normally message as she was leaving to let her mother know how long she would be. I'm leaving this very minute. And yet that second message supposedly never occurred. I think it's going to be interesting to take another look at the Tony Dodge interview, because from what I gather, that was the final interview, and we know that before that she'd done a rehearsal with Megan Cole, and at that point she'd drawn all her narratives together. So it'd be interesting, now that we've looked at all these smaller interviews, to look at the Tony Dodge interview and see how she pulled it all together, because she's contradicted herself multiple times.
I know that she was not in the right mindset or state to drive, and if she were to have driven, she wouldn't have made it far. So my concern is that somebody may have offered to drive her home and then didn't take her home.
Last seen celebrating with her fellow seniors. Where is Kiely Rodni now?
I've always wondered what she meant by not being in the right mindset or state to drive. Because that's not normally how you would describe someone who's drunk. So what exactly was she referring to there? It's just a really odd way of wording it. And to me, it was another red flag. you would say, I know she was just way too drunk to have driven, not in the right mindset or state. It's odd. And then also, how do you make the leap from someone being not able to drive far? So if she were to drive, she wouldn't be able to drive far. How do you make the leap from that to an abduction? It doesn't work that way. Logically, if you think someone was so plastered that they couldn't drive, for starters, you're a horrible person if you then went home and left them like that. But wouldn't you be saying, well, we need to be out there searching because she must have crashed her car somewhere? You know, she talks about an instance in another interview of some people who had crashed their car off the side of the road and it took some time to find them. So why is that not the first thing that would come to mind for her? As opposed to she thinks that someone might have taken advantage of her and offered to take her home and they didn't. It's not logical to think in that order, which I think to everyone was a huge red flag. Why was it so important to push the narrative of an abduction early on? Was it because they didn't want people searching nearby? Was it perhaps they were worried that people might find Kiely and her vehicle if they looked too closely, too nearby? I don't know, just a question.
I hope she knows that we all just love her and we just want her to be safe.
Note the depersonalization there. She says, we all love her and we want her to be safe. There's no I statements there. Sammy herself doesn't give a rat's ass, clearly. She's not saying, I love her, I want her to be safe. It's the we, it's the global we. That right there shows us how very little she is concerned with Kiely's well-being.
That somebody else was involved is my main concern, and I think a lot of the people of Truckee and Tahoe feel the same way, just that there was somebody else involved, because they haven't found a car yet. They've done helicopter searches over Prosser and all of Truckee. Everybody's looking everywhere constantly for her and her car.
Same again. Why does not having found her and her car lead you to the conclusion that somebody else is involved? It shouldn't do. If you, as you've said, believe that she was so intoxicated that she shouldn't have been driving, then your immediate thoughts should be that she's tried to drive and she's had an accident and that they just haven't found the car yet. Is there a leaked truth here? Is she telling us that someone else was involved in Kiely's disappearance? But of course not in the way that we believe. It wasn't an abduction by a stranger.
Sammy Smith was at the party with Kiely and is one of the search coordinators. What time did you last see her?
The last time I saw Kiely was around 12:25 in the morning of the party. I was leaving and I gave her a hug, telling her I loved her and goodbye, and for her to get home safe or be safe.
Do you think that your friend was abducted?
I think there's a definite chance of it.
My final question, is this why the Amber Alert system fails now? Because they're so reluctant to put out Amber Alerts because of people like this who straight out claim abduction in a case when there is no evidence of it, and when we later find out that it was definitely not what happened. Thanks for listening. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. And don't forget to click the like button on your way out.